Well, what I was trying to do was do this. Didn't quite get it. But
Yeah, it is. That's what
here we are. Blueberry, yum yum. Yum yum. Very yum yum. Everything here made by neighbors. Yum yum. So we woke up to interesting. I wake up early. I wake up 6 a.m. As soon as the around me, when the sun goes down and the moon is down, it is darker than dark. Right? So I'm down the bottom of Holler. But I've cleaned a lot of trees around me, so I have open sky. Most of the mountains around here are just solid forest. And it's like a rainforest. It's like being in Brazil. Except we have winter. And I still have trees on these. Oh yeah, a little bit. I've been good for about 6 years. So, yum yum. Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. And remember, this is just from entertainment's sake, right? And so, I don't have the internet to come to a place like this and look at the internet. And I was watching.
They'll be able to use this.
There's
We've
Max.
got to go back and trace all of those people. 1,000 people who all broke in Byron Bay and all over the place. This killing of George Floyd in Minnesota. And so the focus has been shifted and been hijacked over to, a racial protest, a racially motivated protest, and not people paying attention to the situation that we're in. There's a deeper play to all this. They wouldn't get out and they wouldn't protest the fascism that they're all being subject to, but they'll get out there and they'll do a manufactured protest to focus on a racial issue. And this is going to be used it's going to be used against the people is what they're going to do, folks. There's all this stuff going on here in Australia. We've beat the virus. We've done all these things. We kept the social distancing in place. Now you've got all these people that went and gathered in Brisbane, 30,000 people who all broke the lockdown and broke the social distancing guidelines. These people are going to be blamed for an outbreak of coronavirus that happens in Brisbane. You watch. I said on the last report that I uploaded, I'm expecting some event in Brisbane because there seems to be a lot of attention on Brisbane at the moment, a lot of attention on Queensland at the moment, and I'm expecting them to stage some event in Brisbane. And then the very next day, this whole protest happens. I wake up and someone sends me this newspaper at the Sunday Mail of this protest that was happening in Brisbane yesterday. 30,000 people. All these people, I bet they had their cell phones on them. When they declare another cluster in Brisbane, they'll be able to go back and trace all of those people. And they'll be able to blame them on the outbreak. Perhaps that will be the way it's run. Perhaps they'll just stage some event. I don't know. But
so that's Max there in Australia, Crow House.
This whole shift over over to racial focus, they managed to cause this huge outbreak of violence in the United States, virtually on the verge of civil war in the United States. And they've got everybody to break their social distancing guidelines, which are all complete rubbish.
Whoops. Anyway, so that's Max, and he's got interesting things to say. And let's see. Here we go.
How about some deposit in one of my accounts that I can do what I want to?
By police and security agencies, and called the Commonwealth, a res publica, a public thing, the property of a people, has been transformed into an instrument
This is
of
Jimmy
naked
Dore.
pillage and repression on behalf of a global corporate oligarchy. We are serfs ruled by obscenely rich, omnipotent masters who loot the U.S. Treasury, pay little or no taxes, and have perverted the judiciary, the media, and the legislative branches of government to strip us of civil liberties and give them the freedom to commit financial fraud and theft, the loss of control over systems of rulership, the misuse of all democratic institutions, the electoral process, and laws to funnel money upwards into a handful of oligarchs while stripping us of
He's
power
reading from
ominously means that the ruling elites
Chris
no
Hedges.
longer claim the right to have a monopoly on violence. Violence employed by police and security agencies such as the FBI, which have evolved into occupying forces to protect the exclusive interests of a tiny ruling criminal class, exposes the fiction of the rule of law and the treason of the ruling class. In order for nonviolence to work, your opponent must have a conscience, Stokely Carmichael warned. And if your opponent is bereft of a conscience, then state violence is inevitably met with counter-violence. Tyranny takes the place of reform. The danger of widespread sectarian violence in America is now very real. How long can you expect people to watch their children go hungry? How long can you expect people to watch their loved ones suffer and die because they can't get medical care? How long can you expect people to be abused by lawless police and a court system designed to railroad the poor into jails and prisons? How long can you watch the rich profit from your misery? I would prefer that our revolution eschew the poison of violence, which I know too intimately from my 2 decades as a war correspondent, but I also know that when everything around you conspires to crush you, the only way left to affirm yourself is to destroy not only the structures and institutions that have oppressed you, but often yourself. Yep. Okay, so let's stop there. Let's talk about that. So you say the ruling elite has lost all legitimacy and their monopoly on violence. So go ahead and explain that a little bit more.
Well, because that defines government in its modern term.
It's Chris Hedges.
And that is that it has the monopoly on violence. It alone has the right to use violence. But it can only essentially claim that right if the government represents the consent and the will of the governed. Once it no longer does, then its legitimacy to monopolize
No longer does.
violence,
The question is, how long is that no longer does? So I was telling you a story from my car about my little affair to remember. And that, I'm an old guy and I'm not out there looking for love, but I ran into a very amazing woman in the parking lot of a supermarket. And I said that she was a black woman, African American, but she was more than that because she was a ebony goddess, and she, her father was, her grandfather was African, her grandmother was Japanese on one side, other side, grandmother was Hawaiian and American, African American. One grandpa was from Africa, and that guy was a doctor who came to Hawaii to basically be the head doctor at an infectious hospital. Of, what is that disease when you rot away? And the woman he met there was a Japanese doctor who came to do the same thing, and they had similar things, and they right. But the other was grandma from Hawaii. Her parents were her grandma was from Nolens, and the other one's from New York. And so this girl had a pedigree like unbelievable. So she was a musician and a scientist and a doctor and all kinds of things. And at 28 or so, she had a PhD, and she was running a study, and she was doing basically kind of what I used to do. She was. I told her that I was an itinerant scholar. Anyway, so she was. I'm darker. Really. She was. Her skin color was that dark. And so you couldn't really. In bright sunlight, you couldn't really see her form. And what was truly interesting is that she looked like that, but not. And this is a gorilla, but she had the most flat nose. But because of the Japanese and the this and the that, it all went together to look like a beautiful flower. And I just was like amazed at how beautiful she was. And again, she wasn't a skinny girl, but she wasn't overweight. She was all muscle. She worked out. She jogged. She lifted, and she boxed. She could protect herself. And so we had 3 months. January, February, March, and she left in the beginning of May, or February, March, and April, and left in the beginning of May. And went back to Hawaii. That's where she was basically living. And so now I have a place to go to Hawaii. But the interesting thing, this place here, all white people. And they've known me 20 years, everybody around here. So when I took her here for lunch one time, and when I took her to the general store to get some provisions, people were like, and this one guy said, she looks like a gorilla because she's not really tall. She looks, not heavy or fat, but she is muscular. She can pick you up and throw you across the room. So she has no fear, right? But she's not hostile or anything. And when she was with me, she felt fine, being around white people, because they all knew me, and they were, wow. And I said, this is my new friend Amy. And so this is Michael Crichton's book. Right? And after she left, I found this. And Michael Crichton's books are quite interesting. And because, here's a general storyline, and he packs all this information about things going on around us, and most people don't notice. And that's really his real best forte, right? Not so much that he's, a mystery guy or a spy guy or any of those things, but he's an information guy. And so is she, right? So once, and she left, I kind of, opened up one of my boxes of books and found that and read it, along with, so is the place close at 2?
Yeah, we don't have enough.
People.
People.
Okay, take care and I'll see you.
Yeah.
Don't have enough people to. Because this way, I think it's probably missing doing 48 hours since it is.
Right.
So doing 6 days and 8 to 3.
8 to 3. So I
8
got
to 3. She goes, it gives us time to clean up.
right. So there were a lot of people here when I got here around 1. So that's your big time, about 1?
Well, this time, because but I think she had quite a few.
So have you started doing breakfast? You've started to do breakfast, eh? Okay, maybe I'll have to come by for breakfast. But that blueberry yum yum was pretty yum yum.
It is a good one. It is a good one.
Yep.
Dessert should be-
Yeah.
Y'all have a good day. So take care of that.
That's it, Stan.
Anyway, so no one's, except for one guy said, "You look like a gorilla," and she kind of laughed, and because, like I said, she had the flattest nose like I've ever seen. Because part of her lineage comes from Africa slash, she spent time in Australia. Not that that's where her book came from, but um, so we really hit it off. I mean, we are amazingly similar intellectually, had a lot of similar experiences, scholarly, and we could appreciate. She is a black woman living in a white, you know, heathen world, and scholar looking at everyone's world, and so we really kind of hit it off. And that's what I'm saying is, I could have not, and I met her only because I was walking in the supermarket. She was walking out. She had 3 bottles of maple syrup, and I cracked. I guess maple syrup isn't for pancakes anymore. And she laughed, and we started talking, and we kept talking, and we kept talking, and we kept talking. And then I dug in my car and pulled out one of my white papers, and she read all 15 pages, and then started to assess it. Going, well, this is blah blah blah. And that's why we talked for 4 hours. And then I said, so what are you doing now? It was Friday, getting towards afternoon. And she goes, well, I was gonna, spend the weekend. I said, but do you have to? You got to work. You got to punch the time clock. She goes, not really. I said, how long you been here? Oh, 2 months. So before the thing hit, he said, oh yeah, I got here around December, end of November, and set up my lab and my protocols and started crunching numbers. And then this thing crashed into, and the school closed, January, February, and she was left there, but she was still doing her thing. So she had a contract, so she wanted to get paid in full. So she soldiered on, and then she met me. And so, anyway, so she came back to the deep green, which was the deep white, and cold. And we had a nice couple of days. And then she said, well, this is nice, but I'm not, it's too cold. And so I kept going to her place. She had a nice place. So, and then I started staying at my neighbor's place, right? So I could, and she got very busy. She had to collate all her stuff. And so, and she liked the fact that we had a nice little thing going. And yet I wasn't like, oh, I can see you, honey. Oh, but, we just kind of strolled into each other when we had the time and space and the hankering. And that's what you got to do in your life. You got to have the hankering. You got to step up. You got to be real with your life. You can't, oh, I want it to be this way. And then when it's not, you complain, Well, you have to be open for what's ever coming down the pike and take what beauty and love and greatness you can, So, um, so yeah, so you saw what Jimmy Dore had to say. You saw what Max Igon of Crow House had to say, and but it's been this. If you go back and look at Max's work, Jimmy's, they're talking about the same stuff. I'm with Chris, and it's still happening. And it, what Chris had just talked about, the rich oligarchy running us like slaves. Oh man, that was back, when the Constitution was written to do that. The Constitution just gave freedom to the rich white males. And that's why I keep talking about an alternative aesthetic. And my little tryst with my friend Amy was an alternative aesthetic. Most people would have gone, "Oh, I can't do that," for all of the reasons, culturally, socially, racially, you name it. We both of us were cut from the same cloth, where none of that mattered. What mattered, what was on the inside of each of us, and we liked what was on the inside. We liked, how we communicated. We liked how we listened to each other. We liked how we cared for each other. You know. So, 20 minutes and 2 seconds, you know. And I'm not going to go into the intimate details of our tryst, only to say that it was sweet and nice. And I really hadn't had a tryst like that for at least a year or two, right? I had, when John was throwing me out, it was pretty interesting because he kept throwing me out into the interesting world. And I kept having interesting adventures. And then he would, oh, please come back. You know, when he realized that when we did YouTubes together, he gets 70, 60,000 people wanting to, you know, hear my stories on his channel. And then when I wasn't there, people left, you know. He had 20, 30 people watch. And then he begged me, oh, because he was making some serious money when I would do those things. Did he share any of it with me? No. Yes, I stayed there, but I cooked, I cleaned, I did all his errands. You know, I was his errand boy, and I was fine because, you know, it was okay, but it didn't matter. You know, when he kicked me out, and he kicked me out at some of the most, you know, middle of the night in January with 20 degrees below zero and sleet. Get out! I can't see. I don't care. Get out! You know, no empathy, no caring. Blaming me for everything. Whenever people blame other people for their own woes, you know, and that's a real problem, you know, and that's what's going on right now, you know. So if people getting all tied under the wad about George Floyd, and they should, you know, but they should have gotten upset about being, you know, stuck in their house, you know. So. So this is my mask, the gem. So, well, no one's saying much. One person's thumbs up. I'm gonna go because it looks like it may rain, and I left some laundry on the line, and they're closing up here, and so at 23:23, I will say arrivederci. So stay well, be good. I'll try and, you know, I now have 2 or 3 places to go. I still have to go. You know, it's not like when I was at my neighbor's where I could just do it from bed or do it right there. Bingo, 23. 23, 23. Well, I had a nice lunch with you, and it's a beautiful day. I'm going to go do some more gardening. My back is feeling a little bit better. Okay, gang. Catch you later.